Alright, welcome back. In this video, ideology and economic policy. Let's do it. Alright, so this video we're going to get into the economic ideologies of liberals, libertarians, and conservatives. And we're going to go a little bit deeper as well as to the theoretical support that backs up their opinions and why they do feel the way that they do about economic issues. So let's begin with liberal economic ideology. It's characterized by things like support for higher taxes, especially for the wealthy, increased government spending, especially on social programs, things to help the poor, increased government regulation, again, especially often in things like environmental issues, and in general, policies that promote equality, economic equality. Conservative economic ideology, on the other hand, typically favors lower taxes, decreased spending on the poor and the elderly, especially much lower on lower income persons, fewer regulations economically, and again, less of a focus on reducing inequality, economic inequality. Libertarians, lastly, they typically want the least amount of government involvement possible, so minimal taxation, minimal government spending, and essentially their belief is that the government's role in the economy should be to protect private property rights, and that's really it. So we have three very different vantage points and starting points from what each group believes should be done when it comes to economic policy. Now, before we go any further, I wanted to define a term, fiscal policy. This refers to government tax and spending policies. So whenever the government is choosing how much money to raise through taxation or how much money to spend on whatever they're spending it on, that is known as fiscal policy. We're going to discuss two specific forms of fiscal policy, one supported more by conservatives and the other more supported by liberals. So these are called Keynesian economics and supply-side economics. So Keynesian economics is the idea that when the economy isn't doing too well, the federal government should jump in and spend money to increase economic activity. So even if the government has to borrow money and go into more debt and raise the deficit, that's okay. The important thing is to spend money, and that'll jumpstart the economy because they'll spend money, people have more jobs, and those people have money, and then the cycle will start. Supply-side economics, on the other hand, kind of agrees but kind of disagrees. They agree that there is a role for the government when the economy isn't doing well, but instead of the government spending, supply-side economists or supporters of supply-side economics, they favor tax cuts as being the way to do this. So their answer is no, cut taxes, government doesn't need to spend anything. If you cut taxes, people have more money left over in their pockets, which, guess what? They can spend that money. And then when they spend that money, it gets bought by other people or stuff gets sold, you need more workers, etc. And so they view the cycle as starting from tax cuts. So they're both actually kind of similar. They both think the government can spur economic activity when things are going badly. They just disagree about the mechanism. Keynesians say the government should spend money. That's more Democrats and liberals typically favor Keynesian economic policies. Conservatives and Republicans often favor more supply-side economics, which again says yes, there's a role for government, but their role should be to cut taxes. Where are libertarians in all of this? Well, they would probably be in the back of the room pointing out that both of these will increase the national debt, they will lead to higher government deficits, which could have long-run impacts economically, so libertarians will oppose both of these, both Keynesian and supply-side. Now, when we talked about fiscal policy, that was Congress and the President. So Congress, remember, all tax and revenue bills must originate in the House of Representatives. So Congress is in charge of taxation and budgeting, power of the purse. The President, we know, has to sign all legislation into law. So he signs including tax cuts or tax raises as well as spending bills. So that's Congress and the President. Fiscal policy is a political thing. But we have something else. It's known as monetary policy. And monetary policy has to do with the money supply and interest rates. So how much money is out there and available? This controls things like inflation. The value of the dollar depends heavily on the money supply and interest rates. This is not done by Congress and the President. Rather, this is done by the Federal Reserve. which does function essentially as the U.S.'s central bank, but in AP Gov context, it is an independent regulatory commission. So they are in charge of this, they have this power independent of the federal government because we don't want them to be influenced by politics. But again, depending on your economic ideology and beliefs, that too will influence what type of monetary policy a person might support or oppose at a given time. For AP Gov, it's probably important just to realize the basic outlines of monetary policy. When the government, or when the Federal Reserve in this case, is more concerned with inflation, then what they should do is reduce the money supply and raise interest rates. And this will typically have the effect of bringing down inflation. If, on the other hand, the fear is high unemployment, so they want to spur the economy and make it grow, then typically their response is to increase the money supply and to lower interest rates. So until next time, this has been a Money Production. Alright, thanks again for watching this video. If it helped you, do me a favor, hit that like button for me. Help me spread these videos to others. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you guys next time.